Of all the different analyses that have taken place about the US election from November last year, one finding is absolutely consistent and cast iron. Educated voters were a lot more likely to vote for Kamala Harris. The Trump voters were less educated. College education was the biggest dividing line. Those who went to university in America are a lot more likely and voted in a lot heavier numbers for Democratic candidates. And Republican candidates, particularly Trump, benefited a lot from people who never went to university. There's a huge dividing line. Now, I have noticed something that has crept into my comments repeatedly in my channel, and that is folks saying that we are never really going to have a progressive, viable, stable, democratic country while uneducated people vote. And they lay the responsibility for our current traumatic circumstance on voters who don't have a college degree. And the problem is them, the problem is that they don't really understand, and so they shouldn't really be allowed to vote. Some people have actually voiced that. I hope you're enjoying the video. As a psychiatrist who's fascinated by the worlds of politics and economics and philosophy, I love making these videos, and if you'd like to see more of them, then please do like and subscribe and comment in this video. What you'll find is that there's a beautiful community growing up around this channel. We're all going through a national and international trauma right now because of what's happening and where our leaders are taking us. And in this channel, you'll find people honestly sharing their situation and their distress, and other people responding with kindness, empathy, and compassion. So please join this wonderful community that we're forming, join in the comments and the dialogue that's happening. Now, to me, to be perfectly honest, that notion is itself another backdoor pathway to fascism. To suggest that some people are less worthy, qualified, capable, deserving of the vote than others is just another pathway that leads us down to the fascist scenario. So it's not one that I buy, but I do agree that there is something fundamentally wrong with the way that our politics works. There is something fundamentally wrong with the way that our system engages people, because all it asks people to do is pull one lever or tick one box every 4 years at the national level. It's the same in most democratic countries where it's a representative democracy only. All we're asked to do is tick one box or pull one lever. And the rest of the time, we are at the mercy and the whim of the media, various vested interests, vying for our attention, trying to convince us who we should support and who we shouldn't support, who is crazy and who is sane, who is worth voting for and who isn't. There is no constructive process in which we're actually engaged in making decisions together. This is why what I suggest to overcome this huge divide between voters with a college education and voters without is a political system in which we are all engaged in making decisions together. Now, that isn't about coming together and having a shouting match. It isn't about trying to persuade each other that I'm right, no, you're right, no, you don't know what you're talking about, I understand things you don't. It's not about that. You see, I am going to start sharing some other videos that I made years ago about things like citizens' juries and citizens' assemblies, which have taken place in Ireland and other countries around the world, in which people are brought together to deliberate together on specific issues. They hear from experts about those issues. These are the challenges, these are the problems, this is the data, this is the reality. They're hearing dispassionate voices about objectively what's happening, and then together they discuss and debate what solutions might arise from that. So it's not about party politics, it's not about persuading so-and-so to go red or to go blue, to vote for this person or that person. It's not about any of that. It's just simply about coming together to discuss a specific issue, to hear some objective evidence about that issue in a closed space, so just like a jury has to sort of go away and deliberate without interference from media and other sources. It's exactly the same. People then have a conversation based on the facts and evidence that's been presented to them, and then start coming up with policies. It has been shown time and time again that that produces very positive, productive outcomes. And what's more, people can buy in to what is then decided because they've been involved in it. They can own the results. That is often then followed by a wider public vote, but that public vote then is based on the information published from the reports that these juries and assemblies have engaged in. So people can scrutinize them and understand better how they came to those decisions. So again, it's less subject to media bias and interpretation and various vested interests trying to convince you otherwise, because there's been a deliberative process that our peers have engaged in, and we can see how they got to their answers, and we can decide whether or not we support that. So none of that involves a hectoring, coming together in a private space to shout at each other. Involves some deliberative, careful, painstaking work. And that's how we all educate each other together, because what happens when people come together and you have to select these juries in order to represent the public, so they come from different walks of life and different backgrounds. Yes, people with a college degree and people without a college degree, people of different races and ethnicities with the right gender balance, and taking into account a whole series of different background and demographic aspects. And then not only will we have different perspectives on what we hear, based on our own lives and backgrounds and lived experience, we will then have different opinions. And so those dialogues then need to be facilitated by people who then start to have these conversations together. And okay, I can see where you're coming from, this is where I come from, let's see where we can meet in the middle. And sometimes technology is also used these days increasingly for those conversations to happen online, and technology to help to build the consensus. Because AI, for example, can be very good at looking at different responses and trying to find where the consensus themes are and drawing up recommendations from that. And none of this, of course, involves abandoning our representative political systems either. We can still have politicians. The difference will be when we're all involved in collaborative processes around policies, those outcomes, those recommendations can then be fed through to politicians. And politicians will have a big incentive to carry those out because the public have been involved in it, and hopefully also the public will have voted for it too. So their job will largely be to exercise some judgment, but ultimately, hopefully, follow what has come out from this public process. There will be times when we need politicians to make on-the-spot decisions, to react rapidly to changing events. And so that's why you still need politicians. But wider policies that we can deliberate on more, allocation of budgets and things like this, there are ways to do that are happening around the world. And so we don't need to fall into the trap of believing that some people are more qualified to vote than others, that politics and elections should only be for some people and not for others. No, we can acknowledge that there is a problem fundamentally at the core and root of our system, and we can make proposals to do something about it. We can find a way to bridge our divides, and not in a glib way, not in a naive way, but in a hard-headed way, involving realism, and deepen the roots of our democracy, where we're doing more than just ticking a box every few years. And that way we learn to hear each other again, to respect each other more, and that way everybody can participate, not just in voting, but in deliberating and deciding too. Whether you're educated or uneducated, whether you're a billionaire or somebody on welfare. That, I believe, is a new future that we can build from the destruction that is going on around us right now. I hope you liked the video. I hope you also can join me with more of my content that I'm aiming to make over the coming months and years. You see, this time around, what we're experiencing in this administration is a global trauma, and the people going through it have been asking, how can we support ourselves? How can we learn and grow and share together through this process? So I've started to write a series of ebooks. That's together with my whole team, once a month we're going to produce an ebook to help us understand better the psychology of the people around us and the systems we're in, as well as our own psychology too, to help us navigate this increasingly confusing and disorientating world we find ourselves in. You'll be able to find those books on russellsbooks.com. That's russellsbooks.com. As soon as you go there, you'll be able to see the growing catalogue of books and hopefully buy any of them at any point. In addition, I hope you can subscribe to my e-newsletter. See, there's a link in the description of this video and also the description of the channel. And if you go there, you'll be able to fill out a form. Once you've completed the form, you'll then be able to get subscribed to my e-newsletter. And that way you can always be kept up to date about the content I'm producing. You see, the fact is that this platform, as well as all platforms, are owned by a very small number of oligarchs. And at any point, they might decide to shut down a channel like this. And if they do that, then, well, it's going to be hard for us to keep connecting. So if you sign up for my e-newsletter, that way you'll be able to make sure that you'll be informed about my content wherever it's delivered and wherever it lands. Finally, I hope you might also consider becoming a member of the channel. If you do, you'll get these ebooks for free every month. So all the ebooks I produce go free to my members who join the channel every month. Also, you can get priority response to comments, and there's also a members only chat page for higher level members that we engage in regularly to sort of learn, share and support one another. As I say, this is a difficult time, it's a traumatic time in history, so many of us need support from each other. I'm hoping each of these things can help all of us create a better tomorrow together. Thank you.